Hello, welcome to Walk with Raya. I am so passionate about walking and moving my body, and I want to do it with you. So come with me for a 15-minute walk and chat. Hello guys, welcome back to my third episode of Walk with Raya. If you've missed the last two, I very much encourage you to go back and listen to them and go for some walks alongside those videos as well. So this new segment I'm making up, I've actually had some really good feedback, like with people just being encouraged to actually go for a walk and watch this at the same time. So that's my aim, is to encourage people to move their bodies, to chuck this video on, put your runners on, go for a walk and engage in this conversation with me. And by engage, I know you can't talk back, but you can like comment, you can message me topics you'd like me to discuss. So my first one was a brief introduction to like my health journey, I guess, over the years, like what I spent a lot of my 20s doing. And then last week's one was, if you haven't watched it yet, you need to go back and watch it, because I actually spoke about a lot of things that I'd never really been so vulnerable about before. So that was all about my journey recovering from binge eating and just how great food freedom is. So if you guys don't know me, my name is Raya. That is why you're walking with Raya right now. And I am a personal trainer and a nutritionist living in Queensland. I absolutely love everything to do with healthy lifestyles, and I've really gotten into the whole holistic scene in terms of like, so it's not just about what you eat and how you move your body, but it's like looking after your mental and emotional well-being as well, and also your social health too. So that is actually what I'm going to be speaking about today. I'm going to speak a little bit about relational health, just because I feel like I'm hoping this isn't going to be too windy for you guys. If it is, I apologize, but it might be windy where you are anyway, and so, you know, you just feel like you actually are here with me. It's a little bit windy today and a bit overcast, which is not a vibe, but you know, it's still beautiful, right next to the ocean. I love going for my walks next to the ocean. It's so beautiful. But yes, I love walking with people and encouraging them to become their healthiest self in terms of like all round health. So not just going for walks or going to the gym, or not just, you know, like having some protein with your breakfast. Even though all those things are important, they're not what comprises health, overall health. Like it's so much more than just that. And so yeah, today, relational health, literally the health of your closest relationships literally can make or break your overall health. Like, I want to give some examples. So I am married to my amazing husband. I love him to bits. His name is Jordan. I'm obsessed with him. I talk about him all the time. So if you were actually coming for a walk with me, I'd be talking about him. Not in a bad way, in a way that I'm like, oh, he's just so amazing. Anyway, okay, so I would say we have a fairly good relationship, but there's like, you know, like all relationships, we have our issues. And on the days where we aren't going too well as a married couple, maybe like we've miscommunicated, or just maybe we're feeling distant from each other, I've noticed on those days my overall health is shocking. And it's really made me super passionate about encouraging people with their relationships, and also just doing my own research for my own benefit, for my own relationships in my life, but also to be able to then share with others and encourage others to do a lot of like self-reflecting and things like that as well, just so that we can enhance our relationships and therefore enhance our overall health. Like they just work so closely together. And the days, you know, that we're going really well, I just feel on top of the world, like I'm joyful. I've got a bit of a hop in my step. I, you know, want to eat all the good food and go move my body, and I want to like learn new things and like try new projects, and I can dream about things, and you know, like it really does impact everything about my day. So before I go into details about, you know, like improving relationships and things like that, I really wanted to firstly, okay, what's that word? It's like preface? I want to preface something. I think that's the word. If not, I apologize. But I want to preface something before I start, because when I'm speaking about relationships, I'm speaking about like, so it could be between like a spouse. So like if you're married, it could be you and your spouse. It could be, if you're a parent, it could be you and your kids. If you, have some close friendships, or like even relationships with like bosses and employees. Like it's literally like it could cover all relationships, but I just want to say I'm covering like normal relationships that have, you know, they might have like issues. Like every relationship usually has some sort of issues. And so that they're the sort of relationships I'm covering. I'm not covering like dangerous relationships. So when I say dangerous, I mean if there's any sort of abuse, if the person that you're in relationship with, you know, is like mentally, emotionally abusive, physically abusive, whatever, like those sort of relationships, please do not, like whatever I say in this talk, I'm not referring to those kind of relationships. Like I would say get help in those kinds of relationships, like professional help. I am not a professional in that area. I've definitely, you know, like if I'm going to start sharing bits of my childhood and upbringing and our family, kind of the way, like what's happened in our family over the years, I'll go into more detail about that in the upcoming walks. So I've definitely like can empathize with a lot of those kinds of relationships, but at the same time, when I am referring to like all the advice and things like that I'm going to give, I'm referring to like a healthy-ish relationship, like a relationship that has its flaws and has its faults, but you know, like it also has really good times and it's a safe place. That's what I'm referring to. So I wanted to preface that first, just before I go on, just because I don't want people to think I'm giving advice to like into those other relationships. I don't want to speak into those because I'm really not qualified to, and it obviously depends from situation to situation, the advice that you need, like you need advice for you specifically. So in saying that, healthy relationships, I just think that communication is obviously key, and it's usually the thing that weakens a relationship or strengthens it is like communication. And it's really hard because we've all come from different upbringings. We've all, been brought up differently to each other. We've all had different life experiences. We all have different values, different worldviews, different opinion on things, and it's different ways to communicate. We've all had like different kind of trauma in different ways that makes us respond to situations differently. And all this literally like messes up communication. It just makes communication hard because you could be thinking you're communicating something to someone and they could take it in the complete wrong way. And it doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean someone's wrong and someone's right. It literally just means we're all different. And so it actually is a really hard kind of topic. I feel like it's something I personally, like if I want to talk personally, so with my marriage with Jordan and I, in regards to communication, like I'll get a little bit vulnerable here, but like there's times, so just because of some things that happened in my childhood, there's times where any sort of like reaction or response to something that seems like a strong response, like it could be like a tone or a raising of the voice, like I automatically, especially when we first got married, I shut down because like that's my response, and that's just because of, you know, my own personal journey and the traumas that I've personally suffered over the years. And so that's been one thing with Jordan and I with our communication. It's been one thing that we've really had to continue keeping an open conversation about, because like I've got to, like I had to personally realize like I can't just take offense to things and can't think the worst in the situation all the time. Like I'm married to an amazing man, but then there's times where he may need to be like, oh, I've better approach this conversation a bit more set, like in a sensitive kind of way, like I better, you know, like, so it's just been a lot of things, like marrying into someone who, like I married someone who had a completely different childhood, completely different upbringing, communicates in different ways, and also he's a male and I'm a female, so it's proven that, you know, like our brains are actually made up differently. You know, like it actually is proven that the male brain, there's like just because with testosterone, like the left and the right side doesn't communicate and doesn't have as many pathways as it does in the female brain. Like that's a proven fact now. And so it's like, oh, like when I think that Jordan's being insensitive, really it's like his brain doesn't connect the emotions to the situation as well as mine does. So I may think he's being insensitive, but really he's just being like, that's the way his brain works. And I'm like, like just little things like that that I've learned now over our last couple of years of marriage has been massive, and it's been like eye-opening to me. It's helped me to be more gracious and more merciful when a communication error does happen, and vice versa. Like it's helped him to also give me grace when I like might get upset over something that seems like, you know, petty, like I shouldn't have got upset over it. I shouldn't have made me sad, and he's now being able to be more merciful and gracious towards me, knowing that, you know, I do have more like emotional connections to things than he does naturally. So I guess like learning about this, the other person in the relationship, whatever sort of relationship it's in, like knowing them and then approaching communication differently depending on, you know, like how they're going to take a situation or a comment. Like it doesn't mean we need to tiptoe, but it just means we need to be more sensitive about other people's feelings and emotions and the way other people communicate or going to take what you say. So I think that's a really big one. I think one of the main points I want to discuss today is actually regarding, so a lot of the times when a relationship isn't working or when like it's just things aren't going great, we're very quick as human beings to blame the other person without really reflecting on ourselves. And that is why I really wanted to preface at the start that, you know, like this isn't about people who are like emotionally abusing you or whatever, because like that's something that usually it's not an internal reflection may not be needed in that sense. But in most senses, like most situations, most marriages, most relationships, like literally would be a zillion times better if both parties internally, like were more self-aware and to internally checked up on themselves in that situation rather than being quick to blame the other person. Like for example, I could think like, oh, like Jordan's being so selfish right now. But then it's like, oh wait, like if instead of me externally like blaming, so instead of me blaming him for that situation, I could be like, okay, like what ways am I currently being selfish? How can I improve? Like I'm going to reflect on myself, my own actions, my own thought processes, because, you know, it's proven that your thoughts like affect your decisions, and then that affects what you do. Like, so if my thoughts are off, then that could, you know, like there's so many things that I could be reflecting on in my own life in ways that I can improve and I can become a better person and I can become a better wife, rather than being quick to blame him for a situation. And it happens so often with the people closest to us. It's easy for us to like almost give grace to people who aren't that close to us, but when they're close to us, it's like, I can't believe they spoke to me like that, or I can't believe that they're doing this to me, or like, you know, we're just very quick to blame the other person and think the most negative things. Whereas if we were like, okay, I'm going to take a step back right now and I'm going to internally focus for a moment and think, okay, how am I making this situation worse? Like what things can I do to make this situation better? And that brings me on to my next point I want to quickly discuss. I just don't want this walk to go for too long, so I'm just trying to like cover things simply. So if you want me to discuss more things in more detail, please let me know in the comment section, or even just comment if you want me to go into any other areas that I may miss today, because obviously like healthy relationships is such a massive topic and I could literally talk on it for hours, but I know people don't have hours to go for a walk, so you know, you may only have a short amount of time. But yeah, the other thing I want to go into is self-growth, character building, and all that kind of stuff. I just think if we want relationships to improve, we can improve our own characters, and then that will help improve the relationship. Even if the other person on the other end isn't doing any of that, you can still do it. Like I know it's hard, it's easier said than done. I know it's hard to, you know, like take a step back and reflect on your own actions and things like that. If your spouse is not doing that themselves, or if the other person in the relationship is not doing that themselves, it's hard because you think like, if they're not going to put any effort in, I don't want to either. It's the way our brains automatically go. So if you think that way, you are not alone, but we can change that thought process. And I think a good way to do it is to take responsibility of your own actions. So you can't change someone else. You can communicate things for sure, like in a timely manner and in a way that is loving, even if it might have to be harsh, but it can be loving. So you can communicate those kinds of things, but at the same time, you're the only one that you can change. Like your thought processes you're in control of, your actions you're in control of. So you are the one that can change yourself. And so I think if more of us did that in the world, this world would be such a better place. You know, it could be things like thinking about your reactions to things and being like, oh wow, like why do I react like that? Okay, like dig deeper. Like why, whenever someone says something like this to me, like why do I react like that? And how can I react differently? It could be learning more about a certain topic, like it could be listening to podcasts or reading books, and so that you're actually doing some self-development, because we are human beings who are meant to grow and become more and more aware. Like we're not meant to just be stagnant. So it's like, how can I learn more to be a better person? It could be listening to podcasts on like self-development, or reading books about certain topics that really like enlarge your sphere, and like it just creates a bigger lens in a situation so that you're not so narrowly focused. It might be like listening to testimonials of different people so that you can kind of start to develop empathy and sympathy for the way other people think or what they've been through, like so that you can establish some better like sympathy and empathy kind of skills. Like it might be literally like listening to a podcast or reading a book about how to become a better listener. Like that's something that I think we as humans like really suck at often, is listening. Like it's like we can talk so much about ourselves and our own problems, but like, are we very good at listening? I don't know. And so them kind of things, like I love carving out some time per day, even if it's me going for a walk or while I'm at the gym listening to a podcast. Like some sort of self-development every day is a key for me. And I haven't always been like that. Like I definitely, over the years, I've like, even in my first relationship, my first long-term relationship, I feel like I was always blaming the other person. And I feel like I was like never thinking of my own weaknesses and trying to work on anything. It was literally being like, it was blame game all the time. Like I was shocking. And so I really had to start establishing habits of being like changing the way I react, having a think about what I did wrong in a situation, and also self-development practices each day, like actually creating habit each day where I do listen to a podcast or I do read part of a book, like a chapter of a book a day, so that I can develop myself into an even better human. Like we're created to be these awesome humans, and you all are. We're all awesome in our own ways, but we can all grow in that level of awesomeness. You know what I mean? Anyway, so they're just a few, I guess, points. I know I said like I can't cover much in this amount of time, but hopefully you really like got something from it. Just I think we sometimes just need to focus on our own faults and flaws in a way to develop them, not in a way for self-pity or in a way to, be miserable in that, but just in a way where, okay, it's good to be aware, and now what can I do to change it? How can I grow? How can I become better? How can I present myself better to this world so that my relationships are better despite what the other person is doing? So hopefully this helps you guys in regards to relationships. Man, even though I think of these things all the time, I literally still screw it up. But the way I see it, at least I'm trying, and I know that I'll stuff up less and less. Like sometimes I'll stuff up and then sometimes I'll get it perfectly right and I'll be like, yeah, I'm acing it. But we are humans, we do make mistakes, so have grace for yourself. But just in conclusion, like the 3 things I spoke about today, which like there's so many more, hundreds of more things I could talk about. But the 3 things were, make sure you're getting to know the other person, like so that you can understand where they're coming from and have grace for them and forgive them. And just, I guess, not be easily offended or not be quick to, to assume what they're trying to say. Like take time in understanding them as a person. And then number 2, I spoke about, making sure that you're like learning how to communicate best with the person you're in a relationship with, whether that's, again, your spouse, your kid, whatever. And then number 3 is all about self-reflection. So being able to be self-aware and look at your faults and flaws and weaknesses and things that you could do better. Obviously, also the things you do well as well, like congratulate yourself for that. Well done. And continue working on that too, because we can always get better even at our strengths. But then, once we are self-aware and we know our weaknesses, how can we get better? Like, how can we develop our character in those areas, and then hope that the other person in the other side of the relationship also does the same thing. Hopefully that helps, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you give this video a like, because it really does support what I do and try and get it more out there, because I spend time doing things like this for you. So make sure that you are letting me know how you're finding it, like messaging through any sort of topics that you'd like to discuss, and be subscribed to my channel, because as you guys know, I'll be posting these videos every single week so we can go for walks together every single week, because life is better with friends. See ya!